Darkness enveloped the room as I stepped inside the old, creaking house. The air was thick with the scent of dampness and decay. I couldn't believe I had agreed to house sit for my uncle while he was away. The house had always given me the creeps with its faded wallpaper and flickering lights. But I needed a place to stay, and the promise of free accommodation was hard to resist. As I made my way through the hallway, the floorboards groaned beneath my feet, sending a shiver down my spine. The silence was broken only by the distant howl of the wind. The living room was eerily dim, the only light coming from the moon filtering through the curtains. I quickly turned on the overhead light, banishing the shadows that seemed to dance at the edges of my vision. I decided to explore the house to get my bearings. Each room seemed frozen in time, with dust-covered furniture and faded photographs hanging on the walls. When I reached the kitchen, I was relieved to find it relatively modern, though still bathed in an unsettling gloom. I made myself a cup of tea, the sound of boiling water a comforting distraction from the oppressive atmosphere. After a while, I ventured upstairs, my footsteps echoing in the narrow staircase. I reached the landing and stared at the 3 closed doors. The first led to the guest room, where I would be staying. The second was my uncle's bedroom, off limits during his absence. And the third door was the attic, a place I had never dared to enter as a child. Curiosity got the better of me, and I slowly turned the knob. The door creaked open, revealing a small cramped space filled with forgotten relics. My flashlight cast eerie shadows on the ancient trunks and dusty shelves. The air was stifling, and I had to stifle a cough as dust particles danced in the beam of light. Among the forgotten belongings, I spotted an old rocking chair, its wood worn and weathered. An odd sensation washed over me, as if someone were watching me from the shadows. I shook off the feeling and continued to explore, my footsteps echoing in the confined space. The attic seemed to stretch on forever, with narrow passageways leading to more forgotten corners. As I made my way deeper into the attic, I suddenly heard a soft whisper. My heart raced, and I froze in place, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The whisper came again, faint and unintelligible. I strained to listen, my breath catching in my throat. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the sound of my own heartbeat. My rational mind told me it was just the wind or the old house settling, but a primal fear gnawed at me. I quickly turned to leave the attic, my footsteps echoing in my ears. Just as I reached the door, I heard the whisper again, this time closer, as if someone were right behind me. I spun around, my light casting wild shadows on the walls. There was nothing there, only the dusty relics and the silence of the attic. I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest. I had to get out of there. As I descended the staircase, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me down. I locked the attic door and tried to convince myself that it was all in my head, that I had let my imagination run wild. But as I lay in the guest room that night, the darkness seemed to press in on me, and I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being watched. Every creak and groan of the old house sent my nerves on edge. And then, just as I was drifting into an uneasy sleep, I heard it again, a soft, insistent whisper, right by my ear. I jolted awake, my heart racing as I scanned the room in panic. But there was no one there. The room was empty, the darkness annihilating. I sat up, my breath shaky, and listened. The whisper had ceased, replaced once again by the sound of the wind outside. But the feeling of unease remained, a haunting presence that refused to be ignored. In the days that followed, the whispers continued. They grew louder and more persistent, following me from room to room.